Kevin Keegan. They don't chant his name anymore. They don't hang his face in stone. No statue, no mural, no stand at the Kop, no golden tribute to the man who burned for the game. And yet, he carried English football through its fire and fury. He captained Liverpool before they ruled Europe. He conquered Germany when no Englishman dared. He wore the England armband when the team had no direction. And he did something no Englishman has done since. He won the Ballon d'Or twice. Still, the game moved on. Today, we chant other names. We raise banners for men who never gave half as much. We build statues for players who never bled like he did. But Kevin Keegan? He was forgotten not because he failed, but because he never asked to be remembered. He wasn't just a footballer, he was momentum. He was fire wrapped in discipline. He was belief in motion. And when his job was done, he walked away. No farewell tour, no final anthem. Just boots in the locker room and a heart that had given everything. This isn't nostalgia, this is correction. Subscribe if you believe Forgotten Fire deserves to be relit, because this story will burn Kevin Keegan's name back into the game. Before the Ballon d'Or, before Liverpool, before the roar of St. James's. Kevin Keegan was just a wiry kid from Scunthorpe, a coal mining village in Doncaster. Born in 1951, in the shadow of smokestacks and silence, he wasn't tall, wasn't fast, wasn't the kind of Boy Scouts circled in red ink. But he had something else. Hunger. He didn't wait to be chosen. He made himself impossible to ignore. In 1968, at just 17 years old, he signed for Scunthorpe United, the lowest tier of professional football. The pitches were mud. The pay was scraps. But for Keegan, it was heaven. In 124 appearances, he scored 18 goals, but it wasn't about numbers, it was about energy. Every run was a sprint, every tackle a test. Every match, a war he refused to lose. He didn't arrive with hype, he earned it with hustle. Bill Shankly came calling in 1971. The rest of England saw a raw, relentless boy. Shankly saw something else. This lad's got a bloody heart the size of Anfield. And so began the journey from coal dust to the Kop. 1971. Liverpool signed him for £35,000. The press barely blinked. The fans didn't know the name. But in his very first game against Nottingham Forest, he scored. From that moment, the crowd never stopped watching him. Bill Shankly saw it before anyone. He's not just a striker, he's a spark, a force. Keegan wasn't the tallest, wasn't the smoothest, but he moved like he was lit from inside. Within weeks, he was playing every game. Within months, he was becoming Liverpool's engine. He didn't wait for the ball to find him, he hunted it. He pressed before pressing had a name. He created space, chaos, and chances just by moving. And when he found John Toshak, a big man with soft feet, Liverpool had their perfect pair. One smashed through the wall, the other danced through it. They called it telepathy. Really, it was trust. By 1974, Keegan was lifting trophies. In the FA Cup final, he scored twice against Newcastle, his former hometown rivals. Liverpool destroyed them 3-0. Keegan didn't celebrate with arrogance, he celebrated with urgency. Because for him, nothing was enough. Every title only made him hungrier. Every goal only made him chase the next one harder. He didn't play to shine, he played to win, and in doing so, he did both. By the time 1975 arrived, he wasn't just a fan favorite, he was a European phenomenon in the making. Kevin Keegan had built Liverpool into a machine, but he was still the heart that beat fastest inside it. From 1975 to 1977, the club entered a new phase title, contenders turned conquerors. In 1975 to 76, Liverpool lifted the First Division. They followed it with the UEFA Cup, beating Club Brugge in the final. Keegan wasn't just scoring, he was orchestrating chaos across Europe. And in 1976 to 77, it all peaked. league title. FA Cup final, lost but still dominant. And then, the biggest of them all, the 1977 European Cup final against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Rome. The Stadio Olimpico. Keegan didn't score that night. He didn't need to. He ran the game. He tormented defenders, drew fouls, won the penalty that made it 3-1. When he lifted that silver trophy, he had nothing left to prove. 323 appearances, 100 goals, a legacy already forged. And then, he left. Not for money, not for fame, for challenge. He walked away from the greatest team in Europe to see if he could build fire somewhere colder. He signed for Hamburger SV in Germany. The British press mocked him. Most fans didn't even know the club. But Kevin Keegan had never followed comfort. He followed friction. He followed belief. And he was about to make history again. When Kevin Keegan signed for Hamburger SV in 1977, the English press laughed. He's walking into the wilderness. No Englishman succeeds in Germany. They said it wouldn't last a season. The first year, they weren't wrong. The culture was different. The language was harsh. The football was cold. He was isolated, targeted. Even his teammates doubted him. But Kevin Keegan didn't break. He burned hotter. He trained harder. He studied the system. He fought for the respect they wouldn't hand him. And then, in his second season, he led Hamburg to the Bundesliga title. Their first in 19 years. He was Player of the Year in Germany. And then the crowning moment. 1978. Kevin Keegan wins the Ballon d'Or, the best footballer in Europe. English, unapologetic, undeniable. In 1979, he did it again. Back-to-back Ballon d'Ors. Something no English player had done before and no one has done since. He didn't just conquer England, he conquered Europe with sweat, not showboating. Hamburg fans went from cold shoulders to Keegan posters on every wall. He had become more than a player. He was an icon, proof that English fire could burn anywhere. And just as Hamburg reached the 1980 European Cup final, Keegan decided it was time to come home. Not to a giant, to Southampton. Because comfort was never the point. Challenge was. Kevin Keegan could have returned to any club in England. Manchester United were interested. Big wages were waiting. He had just won 2 Ballon d'Ors. He could have walked into royalty. Instead, he chose Southampton. A good team, not a great one. A club with heart, but no recent history of glory. People scratch their heads. Why would one of the world's best players sign for a mid-table side? Simple. Because Keegan didn't play for applause. He played to ignite belief wherever it flickered. And at Southampton, he burned bright. In the 1981-82 season, he scored 26 league goals, finishing behind only Clive Allen. He won the PFA Players' Player of the Year again. Southampton finished 7th that year, one of their best top-flight finishes at the time. Keegan didn't bring ego, he brought elevation, and he proved that greatness doesn't require a grand stage. He didn't scream for credit, he just kept running, scoring, creating. The fire never dimmed. But after 2 unforgettable seasons, the boy who lit up Anfield and Hamburg went to Newcastle, not to retire, to resurrect. In 1982, Kevin Keegan did something unthinkable again. He signed for Newcastle United. Not the club of Shearer or Sheedy, not Premier League glamour. This was 2nd Division Newcastle, battered stadium, strained squad, fading dreams. But Keegan didn't see decline. He saw possibility. They said it was the end of his career, but for Newcastle, it was the beginning of something bigger. From his first game, the atmosphere changed. He gave fans something they hadn't had in years: hope. In 2 seasons, he played 85 games, scored 48 goals, and lit a fire on Tyneside. His leadership wasn't just on the pitch, he inspired belief in the terraces, in the dressing room, in a city aching for a spark. In 1983 to 84, Keegan led them to promotion. He delivered Newcastle back to the First Division, and then he retired. No big farewell, no dragging it out, just the same way he'd always done it. He gave everything, then walked away before the fire could ever go out. It wasn't about numbers, it was about resurrection. He didn't join Newcastle to finish his career, he joined to give them one last heartbeat, and that's exactly what he did. For a decade, Kevin Keegan wore the shirt of England, not just as a player, but as a symbol. He earned 63 caps, scored 21 goals, and eventually captained his country. But his England story, it's not filled with medals, it's filled with burden. In the 1970s and early 80s, England was a nation of confusion, missed tournaments, rotating managers, tactical chaos. They failed to qualify for the 1974 and 1978 World Cups. Keegan was often the only spark in a broken system. Still, he showed up. Still, he believed. England were a team in chaos, missed tournaments, mismatched tactics, but Keegan carried the shirt anyway. He led them into Euro 1980, a disappointing run. And finally, at World Cup 1982, he arrived, injured, missed most of the tournament, came on late against Spain, missed a header that could have changed everything. They crashed out, and critics circled him again. But those who watched closely knew the truth. He gave everything for his country even when the system gave him nothing. He didn't hide behind excuses. He walked away in 1982 with quiet dignity. His final gift to England? Not a trophy, it was example. Kevin Keegan thought he was done with football, retired, quiet, out of the spotlight. But in 1992, the call came from the place where he gave his final spark. Newcastle United. They were broken again, slipping toward the third tier. Fans restless, players scattered, the club was dying. Keegan didn't hesitate. He walked back into the fire this time as a manager. He didn't bring tactics, he brought belief. He didn't study formations, he studied hearts. He saved them from relegation in his first season. Then he turned them into one of the most exciting sides English football had ever seen. He signed Andy Cole, Peter Beardsley, David Ginola, Rob Lee, built an attack that played with freedom, flair, and fury. In 1995 to 96, they led the Premier League by 12 points. The title was theirs until it wasn't. Manchester United caught them, and Keegan gave us the moment every fan remembers. I will love it if we beat them. Love it. They didn't. But that's not the point. Keegan didn't win the league. He won something harder to build trust. A connection between club and city. A reason to believe. When he left in 1997, he hadn't lifted a trophy, but he'd lifted a giant back to life. Kevin Keegan never demanded banners, never begged for monuments, never screamed for legacy. But look at what he left behind. Scunthorpe, 124 games, 18 goals. Liverpool, 323 games, 100 goals, 3 league titles, 2 UEFA Cups, 1 FA Cup, 1 European Cup. Hamburg Bundesliga champion, Ballon d'Or, 1978 and 1979. Southampton, 26 goals in one season, PFA Player of the Year. Newcastle, 85 games, 48 goals, led them to promotion as player, saved them as manager. England, 63 caps, 21 goals, captained the nation through chaos. Newcastle manager Premier League runners-up. Football reborn in black and white. That's not a career. That's a legacy forged in motion. Everywhere he went, he lit a fire. He wasn't a statue, he was energy, he was movement. He was proof that belief, when relentless, becomes unstoppable. And still, no chant, no stand, no song in the rafters. But that's exactly who Kevin Keegan was. He didn't need marble to be remembered. He became memory through momentum. Today, on platforms like X, Fans rediscover his fire. Clips of his goals, his rants, his grit, his refusal to quit. They go viral, not because they're curated, but because they're real. He didn't ask to be immortal, he just asked to be honest. And that honesty burned brighter than anything the game could ever forget. Leave a comment if Kevin Keegan still lives in your football heart. Subscribe if you believe some legends don't need marble. They just need to be spoken of again.